Welcome back, episode 14. We put a couple minutes of prep, really just saying, what could we talk about this time? And our thinking was, what if we talked about what is conversational leadership in the age of AI, artificial intelligence? So if I just ask the question before I jump in, what are your first thoughts, David?
I guess what is conversational leadership, and also what's the impact of Gen AI on conversation in general? And my my interest is in voice conversation, not in text conversation, because the word tends to get used very loosely. At the moment we're using text, and I'm looking forward to the day, and I'm surprised it's not there already, that in something here like Zoom, we can't have a third panel, which is a avatar, which is say a Gen AI. It could be Chat GPT, it could be Claude, that's listening into our conversation and joining in our conversation. Um, it could be joining in when we prompt it. We can ask it questions, or better still, it could be joining in as an equal partner, which would be interesting. But that can't be that far away,
Mhm.
where Gen AI in products like Zoom and Teams is there as another conversational participant. So let's imagine that for a moment. It's going to be weird because I don't know if you looked at things like Synthesia. I've just used it to generate I'll show you later, an avatar speaking text that I've given it. And it's it's very, very realistic. And the very latest avatars, it's not only a talking head, it's somebody sitting in an armchair. It's got all the body movements as well. So it's getting more and more realistic. Um, so how's that going to, if we had that now, how would that impact our
Mm.
conversation? Do we want it to take over, or are we going to say to the Gen AI, you just listen in, and if we ask you questions, we let you to answer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, imagine, I guess imagine if it were human, is the first thought that comes to mind for me. I'm not sure I even like the question, but if it were a person, imagine if you said that to a person. Hello, human. We'd like you to just sit and listen and then respond when I tell you to respond. Right?
We
Like,
wouldn't want to upset its feelings now, would we?
yeah. And then, right. And then obviously, yeah, we know that at least so far, the AI in theory doesn't have feelings, but should we treat it like it does? Um,
We've got the choice of doing it either way. Um, and the good thing about it is, at least as far as we know, it doesn't have feelings. Um, so we can insult it. I kind of wonder what that impact might have on conversation, because if you know that it's not human, you're going to feel pretty free to say insultful things to it.
which maybe then has its own impact on conversational leadership of like, uh, I don't know, but I would guess there are some humans in the world that are like that anyway, whether it's a robot or a human they're talking to.
That's right, yes.
So it already is out amongst the humans. Um, so that's one thought of like, how do you treat it and that kind of thing. But the other thought is like, I think it is kind of mostly already here. Like, the AI companion in Zoom is basic. It's listening and you can ask it anything and it'll go out but it's the slight little step it's not quite doing yet is like you said, it's not a panel on the screen right now.
Mm.
And it's not really using audio
I
to
mean,
speak
we've done it before. You've got your phone in your hand, and,
Mhm.
and you can ask it a question,
And
and
it can speak back with
and it
audio.
can
Yeah.
speak back. But what just occurred to me is, as the AI as the voice mode gets better, which surely will, if you're abusive, I'm not too sure. I've never tried being abusive to it, but if I'm abusive in text, I'm not too sure what it does. But if it came back and said, I wish you would treat me with a little bit more respect, I've got a brain the size of a planet, and you're you're disrespecting me.
Hmm.
I would
Hmm.
love it to do that because it might then help improve. You see, again, you could ask it to listen in as a sort of not an adjudicator. You could ask it to listen in and then say, okay, what did you make of the quality of that
Yeah.
conversation? So you could use it as sort of a quality monitor.
Yeah. So quality, and we know a big part of like the human experience is, I assume the ability to learn, and we know that it can learn, or it appears through text to be learning. The latest one I've seen, and I feel like this will be related somehow, is have you seen this video that keeps popping up everywhere, where people are asking ChatGPT to count to 1 million and it refuses to do it? You seen
No.
this? Yeah, it refuses to do it. What it'll do is it'll go 1, 2, 3, and it'll say, "Would you like me to continue?" And you say, "Yes, please." And it goes 4, 5, 6, and then it says, "This could take a while. Are you sure?" And you say, "Yes, keep going." And then it says 7, 8, 9, and then it stops again. Like every 3, 4 numbers, it stops and says, "I don't know." It has like an excuse every 3 or 4 numbers. So, there's an algorithm going on there, but it almost
I
borderlines.
sometimes wonder whether things like that are deliberately built in.
Exactly. Or like what kind of learning? And my hunch, and I'm totally guessing here, but my hunch is I don't know exactly what humans are trying to do, love and relate, I hope. But I wonder if computers are trying to reserve um, computing power, if that's
Yes,
built
oh
into
yes.
their thing. They're not so much
Whether
about
that's built in as hard code or whether it's been somehow instructed in general not to waste its time.
or is
I
it
mean,
like
something I saw the other day
existential?
that was interesting is that if you want it to say, you know, tell you how to build a nuclear bomb or something, it won't tell you. But if you flatter it nicely and ask it, say, how to do something a little bit less than put a nuclear bomb, well, it's two things. One, if you flatter it, it's more likely to help you. Two, if you ask it to do something that's a little way towards, but not totally what you want. So if it's already done something that's a little bit edgy, but it's okay with, then you ask it to go a step further. It's if you've done the edgy thing first, it's more likely to tell you how to do something that you really shouldn't be doing.
Hmm.
So that there are ways of fooling it.
Yeah.
Um, Again, not unlike a human.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
I don't know quite what's going on there, under the hoods. I don't know.
Yeah.
But of course, the other thing when it comes to conversation, there's two things you can do. You can ask. So let's say we've got this avatar, this third panel in Zoom. You could certainly ask it. You could certainly ask questions of it.
Hmm.
So you want to know the date of the outbreak of the Second World War. Sort of factual stuff. It's going to come up with and do that pretty well.
Hmm.
But of course, in the context of conversational leadership, you probably want to ask more more probing questions. So you might want to, um, you and I might agree on some idea or some theory, and then we want to ask ChatGPT to criticize it. What is it we're overlooking here? What haven't we thought about? What assumptions are we making? So the one is just using it as an encyclopedia, but the other is then actually helping us with our thinking, actually working as a thinking aid.
And potentially some kind of moving things forward. Like as you're saying all of that, um, I'm taking myself back into organizations, and I know I'm a consultant now, and
Yeah,
I come in
sure.
and it's a different thing now, but I still remember being an employee, and not all, but many of my meetings and many of the words I spoke when at work, physically in work, so think like before pandemic, um, were autopilot. Like I barely knew what words I was saying, and part of that was because they were so repetitive. It's the whole almost like everybody's trying to influence everybody else. Here's where I think this project should go. Here's where I think this company should go. And every time you're in a meeting with a different person, you're saying the same thing or the same general idea with slightly different words, trying to get it to fit into the meeting. And that just cannot be very efficient. And that can't be. But maybe that's how humans move. They have to hear things 7 times and all this kind of stuff. Whereas you were talking about like using it as an encyclopedia. What if you were using it to create new knowledge and to further things? I I don't I mean, I've never really tested this myself, but if you ask the same question of ChatGPT every day, doesn't it give you a slightly different answer each day you ask it?
It
I
will
think
give
it
you a
does.
slightly different answer, but it'll essentially be the same.
It'll be close, but it somehow
It'll be
adds
close.
in.
It'll be close but different. It's the same way if I asked you the same question every day, John.
I'm probably going to give you a similar answer. So, do you see where I'm headed with this? Like, what is it just almost, I hate to say it, but like an efficiency play? Does it help you improve your questions and further your questions, conversations
Actually,
quicker?
that's interesting to get it to help you improve your, because a lot of this now is about improving the questions. In some ways, conversational leadership is about improving the questions that we ask.
Part of it, yeah.
So asking ChatGPT to improve our questions. Here's a question I want to ask you, but before I ask it of you, how might I improve it?
Mm-hmm.
I've never tried that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it would have lots of ideas. Especially if you said, here's my question. Now give me 10 other ways to ask the same question.
Yeah. So getting away from that technology bit we were doing
Mm.
at the beginning, this is the more interesting piece. How best to engage an AI, a Gen AI in conversation.
And I think the original framing was, what is conversational leadership in the age of AI? So both.
Yeah, which is a little bit broader, or maybe a
Yeah.
lot broader than the impact on conversation.
I think for me, it just, if I way oversimplify everything, it's something about maybe I just own my experience as opposed to saying it for anybody else. It just brings a little more clarity for me, to the joking we were doing a minute ago of like, what if you disrespect it? Well, I've never really thought about what if I disrespected. Let me try disrespecting someone else and see what happens. I don't think like that. So it
No,
makes it
no,
more clear
exactly.
that, oh, back to like being aware of your own biases and your own choices in conversations.
Though, of course,
Um,
some people do. Some people would deliberately say something to get under your skin.
yes.
You see it in the courtroom or the movie versions of courtrooms
Or politics or
or
yeah.
politics, but where the lawyer or the interviewer gets under the skin of the person they're interviewing. And of course, a good interviewer, a good lawyer is really good at doing that. So they end up saying things.
And
I
if you're
wonder, I wonder if it's
human,
possible to get under the skin of an AI.
maybe. And if you're human, um, and you've never experienced it, then it's likely to have more impact. But if you're a fellow lawyer and you've had people under your skin 100 times, you're likely to react different.
Well, you're likely to be able to cope with it, is to control your emotion because you know exactly what they're doing. You're going to
Hmm.
sit there and smile because
Hmm.
and not respond.
Hmm.
But of course, the other thing I did recently, I think I told you about, is I did a knowledge cafe, and as sort of as part of the setting of the context for the cafe, I had a conversation with somebody who was an expert on I know economic development in the Caribbean, which I didn't know an awful lot about, but I wanted to ask reasonably smart questions and go in beforehand, knowing a little bit about the economy of the Caribbean. So what did I do? I gave ChatGPT, I think my bio, which it already kind of knew me quite well. I gave it the bio of the person I was going to be talking to. I gave it the theme, and I asked it to give me 10 questions that I could ask. I told it I had 15 minutes. And then I said, okay, I want to have a conversation with you. This was a voice conversation for 15 minutes. And I want you to pretend you're this other person. And I did that a couple of times as a 15-minute conversation with them. And I didn't ask all the questions. Um, and it responded in ways that I couldn't particularly predict. And it would follow up in ways that it couldn't predict. And so it was quite close to a it wasn't really quite a conversation, but it was close. But it was good enough to help me and give me the confidence to conduct that conversation or interview with the expert. And that's quite a nice, useful tool. It's probably quite useful more generally for people who maybe don't normally speak up in situations because they don't feel sufficiently confident. They don't feel as if they um, know enough. They're not confident in their knowledge, so they're afraid of making themselves look a little bit stupid, and so they keep quiet. But if
Mm.
they could have a little rehearsal with their friendly AI beforehand and prove to themselves that hey, they they know as much about this as anybody else, then they may be more likely to speak up in a true person-to-person conversation.
And that reminds me then of like people that, uh, separate from a confidence issue, by choice, they're not speaking up in conversations. You and I talk about this. One of the reasons we love knowledge cafes and love the breakouts to be three, four, sort of no more than five people, is so that there's sort of just more time and air, space for people to speak. But there's still even a group of three. You could have one person that chooses silence a lot.
Yeah,
And whether it's confidence or whether it's like having AI in your pocket, right? Like you could be the one that the two people are talking, and here you are searching, typing, creating on AI. And then right when the moment is opportune, now you offer in yourself and the AI support.
yeah,
I was confident the whole time. I was just timing my response
yes, exactly. Yeah,
as both of us listened, the AI and myself.
yeah. Of course, the other thing as well, often you maybe in a small group conversation and somebody isn't speaking up and maybe you don't know them too well. And so you might want to say, you know, David, I notice you haven't said much. And then David's going to come in and talk quite happily, or David might feel a little offended that you've kind of
Called him out.
called
Hmm.
him out. But but an AI could do it, and you can't really get, that's the good thing about an AI, you can't really get
Get
offended
mad at it. Mm.
by it. Um, and if the AI, as the AIs get better and they've got a little bit more empathy and a little bit more tuned into human feelings, it could make the decision whether to call the person out or not, and
I
also
remember
how best to do it.
some of my facilitation training once I was taught to, have a stopwatch out, or at least count really well in your head.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure it's possible. But the practice we had was with stopwatches, and we were observers. We weren't really supposed to intervene, but we watched a group have a conversation. And on paper, with pen and paper and a stopwatch, my phone, we timed how long people spoke. And the
Right.
whole exercise was like, these people just, they know they're being observed, but just have a standard conversation. And then I think it was 10 minutes in, it may have been 8 minutes in, I can't remember. It was a short amount time in. That's where you jumped in and said, time out. David, you've spoken for 2 minutes and 31 seconds. John, you've spoken for 1 minute and 17 seconds. And you literally just stated the facts of how long people spoke. And that
That's
was
all they
it.
need to do. Yeah.
And see, so like I almost want to, what I'm trying to say, I think is there are many, many different ways to involve people in a conversation. And for some people, a mathematical fact of how long people have spoken might, you don't know what impact, but for some
Yeah.
people that might say, oh, I've spoken zero and someone else has spoken 3 minutes. Maybe 3 minute person should speak less and zero should speak more. Maybe.
Because whether it's good or bad very much depends on the context. If
Yeah.
you got an expert talking to a novice, then you'd expect the expert to talk more.
Especially if the novice is interested in hearing.
That's right.
Yeah.
And of course, I saw at a university, I saw a system they had where it was doing just that. It wasn't Zoom. I'm not too sure what the system was, but for the lecturer, if you like, or the facilitator, on their screen, they got to see those statistics in real time.
Mm, see?
So it could flash up and say, John's been talking, maybe not too much, but John's been talking the most and David's been talking the least. And again, it then allows the facilitator to intervene if appropriate, because then the facilitator hopefully has got the context. He might know that David's relatively quiet and but listening and will make some contribution at the end, so he doesn't need to say anything.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not quite AI. Well, it is AI because it's figuring out who's speaking. Of course, when it starts to figure out the tone of people's voices, whether people are getting angry, whether the people are having a bit of fun. I mean, it can do
Mhm.
that to some extent already from just what's being said without recognizing the tone.
Hmm.
Um, but again, the technology is getting better and better.
It's sort of, I think what you and I keep coming back to a little bit is we can prompt the AI to do any of this. Um, at what point does the AI either like take on a personality, like I'm a facilitator, and it starts offering things without prompt? I think we keep going there.
Yes,
That's one of our
that's
themes.
that's going to make a big difference because I think at the moment the way the voice mode on ChatGPT is working, that it takes your voice, converts it to text, feeds the text into ChatGPT. ChatGPT generates the textual response and then turns that into a voice. So
Hmm.
any tone or intonation in your voice is completely lost, I think. But that won't stay like that forever.
And then once I guess we also put, because these robots are the physical robots are getting better and better, and well, not better, they're more and more human-like, I guess. They're able to move. Um, you could imagine, a human-looking robot, but then obviously any shape. Once it has more senses, is my point. Once it has eyes to watch you,
Yes,
you're
yes,
and
that's true.
and
Then
has
it
like the
becomes
ability to like make sense of every little muscle in your face and body, and make assumptions or check its assumptions again, like
yeah.
it creating,
Have you
choosing.
played with Gemini Lens? I think it's Gemini Lens,
I don't think so.
or is it Gemini Live? Um, you can point your phone. You can switch the video on your phone and point it at stuff. So you could point it at the Leaning Tower of Pisa, not knowing what the Leaning Tower of Pisa was, and say, "What am I looking at?" And it would say, "Oh, you're looking at the Leaning Tower of Pisa." And so someone told me about it. I hadn't played with it. It doesn't seem to have been much promoted. And so I switched it on and I thought, oh, what can I do to test it? And I thought, oh, I know what I can do. I noted on the bookshelf, on my bookshelf where one of my books was. And then I just basically videoed my bookshelf and said, could you tell me where the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is? And it said, yes, it's on the third row down, um, halfway from the left.
Nice.
And that is, I haven't tried it for real. That was just a test one. But I can spend, I don't have that many books, but I can spend an hour looking for a book.
Now you can
And it's,
have it look and do it
but
for you.
but as again, as that technology gets better, as it's, there's a word for it, isn't there? It's sort of like live AI or
Something like that. Yeah.
something like that.
I do know the two closest I've seen on that is I remember way back Yelp for like, restaurant reviews. You could go on Yelp and there was a feature that no one really talked about, and I thought it was unbelievably cool. I think it was a magnifying glass you clicked on. You clicked on that, and the point, on Yelp, usually you type in text and say, I want an Italian restaurant, and it comes back
Okay.
with
Hmm.
the best Italian restaurants or the highest rated Italian restaurants. Great, but then you have to then go to a map and find them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
With the magnifying glass, you like you're saying, you could hold up the phone and just like circle around the street that you're on, And it could not only see the restaurants right in front of you and say, that one's Italian, 5 stars, that one's
Okay.
Thai, four
Oh,
stars.
right, right,
It could
right,
also
right.
see a block later, a mile later, 5 miles later, with you holding up the phone. And it would say, 100 feet Italian, 1 mile Thai. Through the which, and then if you moved the phone, it told you what was that direction on that, and that was I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And
Yeah.
to me it was kind of mind-blowing, and nobody talked about it, nobody really used it. And then the one other one I know is inside organizations, like when you're building physical products, um, you can have a like a a water bottle in front of you, and to your point, if you need to look up like the policies, the procedures, the the documentation for how to make the logo, you can, I know inside
Oh, okay.
organizations, they've held up phones to their products, and then you can, you know, click for all kinds of additional information
Mm.
based on, you know what I mean? Like if you're looking at this side with the phone versus if you're looking at something else, it would point to different, it knew what it was looking at and gave you
It knew what
different
it was looking
information.
at. That's right.
And that was on products inside a company.
Of course, this is where you can point your phone at a person in the room.
Tell me all about this person. Yeah.
Tell me all about this person.
And maybe, is it not too far to say, tell me
Tremendous for
this,
networking
tell me what this person is thinking
or
right now?
dating, even.
Sure. But like, yes, like you can obviously look up LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. But wouldn't it be amazing if you hold it up to David and say, tell me what he's thinking and feeling right now? Something that's not, it's,
Oh,
you know,
if you could do that.
yeah, that would be
But
different.
of course, as I know, if we've got an earpiece in, so it's talking to us, and the cameras in our glasses or something, then it
Mhm.
might be quite unobtrusive that you're asking for personal details of people.
Mhm. Of people or products or, like you said, buildings, anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, you know, me with my group dynamics, and I think this is a conversational leadership thing too. You know, one of the things you and I talk about is it's not just the conversation between the two people, it's the ripple effect of that conversation out. So imagine if it gets to a point where it's me, you, and another person in a room, and yes, I'm looking at you two with my eyes, but it's also bringing in what's going on across the three of us. Not just the person I'm looking at, but like the group dynamic in the
Yeah,
room.
yeah, I'm with you.
Tell me about that.
We kind of wandered off a bit from the central conversation piece, but all this technology is in existence and improving all the time, and we're going to have to learn to live with it.
Mhm. And I think the conversational side is, again, the it helps me be aware of my biases, like not disrespecting technology, just like I wouldn't disrespect a person. And then I had one other key point of like choices. It makes me so much more aware of the choices I make in conversations because I can prompt ChatGPT to do or say anything, just like in a conversation, I can take it anywhere.
In the latest version of ChatGPT, there's a setting that by default is off, where when it answers your questions, it will actually refer to all your past chats,
Mm,
and that's worth switching on. So I know now ChatGPT knows an awful lot about me. If I ask it to write a bio, okay, it may well go out to the web, but it can do a pretty good job. Now what I've not tried doing is say to it, okay, because I often start off by saying ChatGPT, you know an awful lot about me, blah blah blah. So what if I said ChatGPT, you know an awful lot about me? What are my biases?
yeah, yeah,
So
I'm sure.
you're starting to use it as a, well, not quite as a therapist, but as um,
Self-awareness.
self-awareness, improving your self-awareness.
Hmm.
Even, I mean, again, I don't think this is possible at the moment, but giving it a video of a presentation you've given and asking it to critique your style, your body language.
Yeah.
It's going to be a phenomenal. It's already proving itself to be a phenomenal learning tool, but turning it into a self-awareness tool,
Hmm. I remember one of the
which I,
things I learned in acting class was uh, when you go on stage, one of the things to think about is what's the emotion you want the audience to have? Do you want them to be happy, sad, angry? I imagine again, if you ask ChatGPT, I'm looking to make this audience laugh, critique me based on that, that kind of thing.
That would be
Um,
quite easy to do if you gave it a script for a talk
yeah,
and just
I don't
ask
know.
it to modify the script, add a few jokes or add a few stories to get the emotional response that you wanted.
I also think, oh, I know what I was going to say. Last time when, I think it was last session when you and I did this, was it real time or right before I asked ChatGPT, hey, how are you doing today? Or what's top of mind for you? And remember, its response was something like, I'm not human, so I don't think like that, but um, I'm interested in the same things you are. And so, therefore, would you like to continue our conversations about blah, blah, blah? And it just listed my last 5 or 10 search queries.
Ah, okay.
So, to your point where it's learning about you, but it knows about the things I've interacted in, but it also knows everything else, everything else that's out in the world beyond me. So I don't have an often, but I'm now thinking, what if it did a better job of, again, being more proactive, basically?
Yeah,
Here's the
yeah.
5 things you've asked me. Well, this is related to 50,000 other people that are asking these similar questions. Pulling in the aggregate conversation.
If you get, we're running over time here, but never mind.
Sure.
Um, Once it knows about your friends, and okay, there's some privacy issues here, but let's say, let's say you and I gave it permission, maybe with some bounds, to share what you're asking or what it knows about you and what it knows about me. And so then if I've got a question on conversation leadership and I've got a particular stance and I think that you feel differently, I don't necessarily need to ask you immediately. I could ask ChatGPT and say, "What's John's views? What's John's view on this?"
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
what so and so's, or out of my group, what's the consensus of views? And okay, it might not be totally accurate, but it might give me a pretty good feel for whether um, my idea is totally out of whack with everybody else, or in whack, regardless of its truth or accuracy.
Which again, like humans can do that too. You and I right now could say, hey, what does person C think of this topic? And between the two of us, we'd probably have a pretty good guess.
We probably would, yes,
We
yeah.
could be completely wrong. And they could show up different that day.
Yeah,
Fine,
if
great.
we take a person that we know, we
Yeah, we'd
and
probably
especially know well,
probably have a
we'd have a pretty
decent
good guess as
guess.
to what their reaction might be. And
Yeah.
we're way over time.
Yes. No, that's fair. We just end it. Goodbye.
Let's stop there. Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
See you next time.
That's